Okay, we are live. We are live on YouTube. Okay. So I've never done the YouTube live stream before, so welcome in. So over on YouTube and on StreamYard, doing this. So I'm double checking all the things. All right. So welcome in. Let me reset my slides real quick. There we go. That's what we're talking about today. Position yourself as the number one private practice, most trusted practice in your community. And this is fun because this is going to be um, a little bit theoretical, but it's going to give you a framework that I think works really well. And we're going to dive into story. We're going to dive into movies and give you a walkthrough of what does it mean to be a guide. Position yourself as a guide in the community because people are looking for a guide. People are coming to your private practices because they have a problem and they need a trusted guide. And the ones that position themselves as they trusted guide in the community, they're going to be that number one trusted private practice. So we're going to do a little deep dive into story, how the brain works, and get really tactical on how to actually do that. Because practice owners, whether you're a group practice or you are a solo practice, you have to think about a few of these ways and how you can actually position yourself as a guide to help people and build that trust. So before I jump in, just a kind of a sneak peek, I've been doing a lot of research on all the venture capital money coming into the private practice market. And there is billions of dollars going into this. So many of you might have experienced a slowdown in leads coming in this whole year, right? There's been a little bit of a slowdown. And maybe you're sensing uptick now that we're into the fall and coming out of the summer and people are wanting some help. But there's a period of time there where it got really quiet for a lot of private practices, and maybe it's still quiet for you. Well, I have a theory around all this private venture capital money that's coming into the market, stealing market share. I know practice owners are having a hard time hiring because of the online providers that are coming in and taking away market share for the hiring pool. So what it's really coming down to is building a brand. If you want to go against some of the big players that are coming into your markets, there's even franchises that are coming out now. So, think of it as like the McDonald's of therapy practice that are coming in. Like they have a lot of brand power. They're building brand power. They're outranking you on SEO and all these other things. But for you, the private practice owner, the local kind of the mom and pop shop, it comes down to your brand and building a brand. And so how do you position yourself as the number one trusted practice in your community? That's what we're going to be talking about today. All right. So many of you are going to get this on the replay. I'm going to have you guys go ahead and in the chat, either on YouTube or in the StreamYard, kind of let me know where you're coming in from this morning, what you're hoping to get out of maybe this webinar, and I'll read those along the way. Okay. All right. So let me jump in because we have a lot to talk about. Let's put that right there. I'm managing multiple screens today. All right. Let's make sure I'm in the right one. Okay, here we go. All right. So here it is. What do practice owners want? Well, they just don't want to, do amazing work in helping their clients, but you want to be known as that number one practice to help people in your particular niche, right? You want to be known as the practice that goes to the go-to practice for maybe it's couples, maybe you're more general, but maybe it's children, teens, women, those who've experienced trauma, right? But the problem is practice owners don't really have a framework to kind of get to that number one place in the minds and hearts and the peoples and the communities that you serve. So, when people come to you for counseling, like I said earlier, when people come to you for counseling, they're not looking for a hero. They are looking for a trusted guide to help them, right? The problem that we're trying to solve today is that in order to become that number one trusted practice in your community, you need to stop playing the hero and instead play the guide in the lives of the clients and the clinicians and the communities that you serve. So in this webinar, we're going to dive deep into what does it mean to be the guide? What does it mean to be the guide in your practice and in the communities that you serve? And I'm really going to kind of share with you like 6 ways you can do that and 6 different ways you can kind of lean in to those areas of being that trusted guide. Okay. That is the plan. A reminder that this webinar is brought to you by TheraSAS. This is an intake CRM that I've been leveraging in my own practices and also now selling it to private practice and group practices. So if you're looking to get away from the Google Sheets or handwritten notes when people are asking for an appointment, check out TheraSAS. It's a really powerful intake CRM. More on that to come. All right. Some of you know a little bit about my origin story, but as a reminder, almost 8 years ago now, coming up on October, 8 years ago, my wife came home from the place that she was getting her hours in. She was a clinician. She's getting her hours in. And she said, Brent, I want to start my own private practice. When I'm done with the hours, I want to start my own, and I want to focus on kids, and I want it to be private pay. I don't want to deal with insurance. Well, at that time, my wife was 6 months pregnant with our son. We had twin girls. You can see at that time, twin girls who were 2 years old. So that's 3 kids under 3. We did not know what we were thinking. But I didn't have a marketing degree, and I've never started a business before. She's like, Brent, I need your help doing this. And I was like, well, we don't have any money to pay to build us a website or build us a sales funnel. I didn't even know what a sales funnel was, but we wanted to live in Chicagoland to be near family, and we couldn't live off my salary alone at that time. So, and we were starting from absolute scratch, and we had to make this business work. So I did a deep dive in what does it mean to start a business, branding, marketing, all those things, right? So waking up at 4 a.m, having anxiety and lots of ideas on how to maybe grow a practice. And I knew that video had to be a big part of it. SEO, marketing, word of mouth, referral sources, all those things. And this is like what I obsessed about. So, a few months later, we launched Kid Matters Counseling. This is our family today, and it's actually growing. My wife is 7 months pregnant, so we have baby number 4 coming. And we also, this is what Kid Matters looks like, 8 years later. It's 11 clinicians, 100% private pay, over $1 million in revenue, and we have over 3,000 email subscribers. And we really were focusing. What we've come to understand is that we have to position ourselves as a trusted brand, as a trusted practice in the community that we serve. So we went from zero to all of this, and it's been quite a ride. Learned a lot. And since then, I've helped launch over 12 private practices across the country, a lot of them private pay, and a lot of it about building a brand, a trusted brand in the communities that they serve, so we can scale them up. And so that's a little bit of my origin story. I consider myself a full stack marketer. I've done all the marketing things. I've done all the content creation, and I've been a sort of certified story brand guide. I was a guide for 5 years. The first year I didn't renew, but for the past 5 years, I've been helping practice owners clarify their message. And some of the story brand framework I'm going to be sharing just a little bit of today. And it's really been my mission. It's been my mission to help launch, scale, grow 30,000 practices across the country by 2030. This used to be 10,000. And then it came about, we were hitting that $10,000 point probably next year. And we needed to expand the vision a little bit. So through Play Therapy Toolbox, which is online learning e-courses for play therapists, my wife and I do. TheraSAS is the CRM. Private Pay Practice is an e-course to help launch private pay practices. And then brand your practice across all those platforms, email subscribers, YouTube subscribers, all the things. We're looking to help 30,000 people launch, grow, or scale a private practice. All right, so here it is. The plan for the day is to really kind of dive into research and understand the 2 primary tasks of the brain and what makes an amazing guide and the 6 steps to establish your guidance. And then we're going to get really practical with some applications. And if you have questions along the way, please put them in the chat. I love having conversations. All right, so hello from Queens. Yes, Michelle. Hey, Andrea from Connecticut. Meg. Oh, Alaska. Whoa, awesome. Welcome. Pennsylvania. My parents just moved to Pennsylvania, up by Erie. So welcome, Crystal. All right. Yep. Rural area in Illinois. Wonderful. Texas and Crete. Hey, whoa, not too far. Yep. Oh, wonderful. Yes, Michelle. Hello. Okay. All right. Let's jump in. It's great. Thank you for saying hello, introducing yourselves. All right. Here we go. Let's talk a little bit about some research here. All right. Okay, in 2008, 2009, Song and Schwartz from the University of Michigan conducted research that shows clarity lowers people's evaluation of risk. The idea is processing fluency here. The easier the information is to process, the more believable it becomes. They also show that a clear message also lowers perceived effort and difficulty. Okay, I want you to remember that. In 1972, Ian Begg from the University of Western Ontario conducted research that shows that replacing technical, cute, and clever language increases memorability tenfold. And this is where now we refer to this as perceptual fluency. And then the next piece of research I want us to think about is Daniel Oppenheimer, is a Princeton psychologist. He published in 2006 showing that the relationship clarity has on perceived intelligence and authority. So when people read clear and simplified explanations, they give the author much higher intelligence and authority scores than authors who produce jargon-filled and verbose writing. I went to graduate school. I've read these articles, and anyone who can clearly, I think that's why we like good professors, because they can distill complex ideas and teach it in a way that's clear, right? I think that's what makes a really good professor. So I don't know if you can hear this, but this is Elon Musk talking about lithium batteries and charging. So I don't know if you can. I'm going to turn up my speaker, so hopefully you can hear it. Let me know if you can in the chat, but if not, I will share the link. And it's really fascinating. Let me move over here to 39 seconds here. All right, so you can't hear. So let me just put the link in the chat for you guys to go back to it. So thank you. This was my new, this was a new approach for me. So that obviously didn't work. So here's what he's saying. Here's what he's saying. Okay. This is what he's saying. He says the way, because Joe Rogan's like, why, full tank, why wouldn't I want to fill my car up all the way? And he said, well, you need to think about ions in the battery like this. It's like cars in a parking lot. When the parking lot is empty, it's easier to find a parking space, so your car can just pull right in. But when the parking lot is really full, it takes longer to find a space for your car to park. The same thing is like these little ions are bouncing around the battery looking for a parking space. And so it takes about the same amount of time to charge a battery from 0 to 80% as it takes to charge a battery from 80 to 100%. Because again, those ions are just bouncing around looking for a parking spot. And the fuller it gets, the longer it takes for those ions to find a parking spot. Okay. So I share that because he's taking a very complex idea of lithium batteries, right? All the mechanics that go into building a Tesla and having battery powered cars and charging them, and the mindset behind it. Like, how do you think about charging and refueling your electric car? He used the imagery. It's sort of like a parking lot at the mall. Okay. So again, the big takeaways here are research shows that clarity makes a huge impact in the brain of your clients. It increases believability, memorability, and increases your authority, and while also decreasing perceived difficulty and potential risk. So people, a lot of times they distrust marketing, but being clear and concise is a great way to increase trust. This is also known as the Keats heuristic. It claims that people conflate ease and processing of truth. So the easier the information is to process, the more believable it becomes. All right. So there we go. A little bit of research. And now we're going to jump in. Again, if you have any questions, please jump in at any time and ask. But we're going to jump in a little bit here about how the brain works. And this is coming from, some of this is coming from Donald Miller's Building a Story brand. And it's really important. It's really important to know this. By the way, these next handful of images were generated by AI. All right. So your brain is tasked to do two things, right? The first thing is the first one is to survive and thrive. And the second one is to conserve calories. So your brain's dominant job is to do these two things: survive and thrive, and to conserve calories. And what this means to you is that you need to communicate something about your practice, your brand, your clinical skills that will actually help potential clients survive and thrive. What I want you to do is to imagine that you're going to, you're at a party or you're at church, right? Or after church, and someone asks you, so what did you do this weekend? Or what did you do this week? And then you start talking about how you went to the grocery store and then you went out to eat with a friend, and then your son Jimmy had college applications that he had to finish, but then you guys ran out of broccoli, and so you had to go back to the grocery store because broccoli is Jimmy's favorite food when he's studying, right? And you just kind of keep like going on and on. So you could possibly hang with that person for about 20 to 30 seconds before your brain starts to drift into thinking about your unfinished house project, or that thing you need to fix for dinner, or that unresolved thing at work you got to get to. Right. So the same thing goes with how you talk about your business. So imagine if you're at a block party and someone asks you, what do you do? And you start using psychobabble, like, I'm a therapist and I use sensory motor integration to help people expand their self-regulatory capacity to enhance their executive functioning skills, or something like that. This is a little bit of hyperbole, but you get the point, right? The person you're talking to, their brain is scanning like all those big words and all that information you're giving them. And they're going to be like, that's pretty confusing. This isn't going to help us survive and thrive. It's time to move on. So you either, you walk away from that conversation, or you start daydreaming about the beach or something. So, their brain's going to turn off as you begin to, if you don't clearly explain what you do and how you help people survive and thrive. All right. The second thing, your brain is trying to do is conserve calories. The average adult brain burns about 350 to 450 calories a day. And if you're doing a lot of cognitive work like creative writing, critical thinking, you're going to burn even more calories. A grandmaster chess player can burn over 500 calories playing just 2 hours of chess, because they're sitting down and they're sitting down the whole time. Many of us have experienced that. We'll go to conferences or training events and we'll sit down, and at the end of the day, we're exhausted. And all we did was sit down for 5 or 6 hours, but our brains were engaged, right? We were doing a lot of thinking. So going back to our point about our brains helping us to conserve calories, our brain has a mechanism that will say to us, hey, this information that you're consuming is either helpful or is not helpful. And if it's not helpful, we need to stop burning calories, try and understand what's going on. And let's go focus on something else that's going to help us survive and thrive. All right. So your brain's going to go into hibernation mode, like daydreaming or something. It's going to want to stop burning calories. So let's think about your website a little bit here. So let's think about marketing, right? I want you to think about your website right now. Are you communicating the things to help your clients survive and thrive? Or are you making them burn too many calories? So this is even more critical for people seeking mental health support, because their life is in crisis. They are grieving. They are in pain. There's some sort of suffering. The brain is more distressed and it's tired, and their ability to focus and engage is already at a disadvantage. So you don't want to be clever. You don't want to be cute. You don't want to be vague. But this is a huge opportunity for you, because the therapist who can simply and clearly communicate how they can help someone, that potential client's brain is going to latch onto that message like Velcro, because it's going to help them survive and thrive, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a guide to help them survive and thrive. And you're going to win more and more clients. And from the research that we talked about above, the more clear you are, the more trustworthy you become. So building that trusted brand in your community really starts with your marketing and having clear marketing, which I'll talk a little bit more and share some resources about that in a little bit. So let's remember, this is StoryBrand, right? If you confuse, you're going to lose. You don't want confusion to be the enemy to scaling your practice and becoming that trusted brand in your community. So you only want to communicate the things that's going to help your ideal client survive and thrive. Do not talk about your favorite Netflix shows unless it's going to help your client survive and thrive, right? And it must be so clear and so simple that they don't have to burn any calories to understand you. So this is why storytelling is important. Everybody pays attention when a story starts. That's why you can sit in a movie theater for 2 hours or binge watch like 5 Netflix flick shows in a row for 5 hours, and your brain isn't going to daydream once. Donald Miller talks about it's like story, it hijacks the brain. But here's the shift. If you want to book more clients, hire amazing clinicians, transform the community that you're in, you're not going to tell your story. You're going to invite clients into a story where the client is the hero and you're the guide to help them solve the problem and win the day. And if there's really just one superpower that you can get out of this webinar, is I want you to become better storytellers, to be better guides, or at least ways that you can invite people into the story that you can position yourself as a trusted guide, right? And not the hero. You are not the hero. The guide who can simplify complex ideas and invite them into a story. A guide who can simplify and help people understand the complex problems that they're going through and simplify that. You're going to win. You're going to win. I'm trying to get some plumbing work done in my house, and I think I know what I'm doing. It turns out I don't. But the one plumber, they charge more, but they were able to simplify a complex plumbing issue that I'm trying to solve. They're able to be like, well, you need to do this, and you will do this, and then we do this. And if we do these 3 things, you'll be all set, right? They just broke it down for me. So let's jump in. Let's see here. I'm going to take a quick water break before we jump into what makes an amazing guide. So just a reminder, don't tell your story, invite clients into a story. All right. I'm going to take a quick water break. Any questions here? I'm looking in the chat for YouTube and on StreamYard. Okay. Yeah. Let me know. Does this make sense? Does it not make sense? I know there's a delay between the comments and the video. I'm trying to think if there's, yes, love it. Thank you, Charlene. I can actually highlight this. I'm trying to think of like other people who can like simplify complex ideas. Like I think Elon Musk does a good job of that. I think Donald Miller in building a story brand, I think that he's actually kind of a master at it. And I'll get to this in a minute. Actually, I'm not going to give it away. I'm not going to give it away yet. All right. Seeing no extra comments, let's go ahead and jump in. What makes an amazing guide? So in many stories, a hero cannot solve the problem they are facing. They often encounter another character that serves as the guide to the hero. And here's some classic guides. I hope these are fun, man. Let's bring it back here. Good Will Hunting, right? Robin Williams playing Dr. Sean McGuire in Good Will Hunting. Just a wonderful guide. What a character. What a performance too. Just an amazing performance by both of them. Gandalf, my favorite guide. Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, Dumbledore in Harry Potter, Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost. She plays the guide. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda in Star Wars. They play guides. Oh, man, another great. Morpheus plays the guide to Yoda in The Matrix. We have Haymitch in The Hunger Games. We have Doc Brown in Back to the Future. We have Iceman. So in the newest Top Gun, Maverick, Iceman actually comes back and plays the guide. And then actually Tom Cruise plays the guide as well in that story. But it's like a double guide. Rafiki in The Lion King. Genie in Aladdin. And of course, Mother Abbess in The Sound of Music. We also have Lumiere, Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts, and Beauty and the Beast. All right, so those are some of the guides. And they really do 6 things, and we're going to break this down in just a minute. They show empathy. The guide will provide safety, and sometimes that's physical, sometimes it's emotional safety. The guide will demonstrate authority in some way. Authority in a way that is going to actually help the guide or the hero. Number 4, it clearly illuminates the problem. Number 5 is simply provides a simple plan. And then number 6 calls the hero to action. Okay, so all 6 of these steps really help build a deep and abiding trust with the hero in the story. So if you're able to clearly articulate how you are a trusted guide, so where the hero is not burning calories trying to understand what you do, you invite them into a story of transformation, you're going to gain their trust. Because the client is asking, can I trust you enough to help me with this difficult problem? Can I trust you? That is what they're asking. And here you can play the role as a guide in the story of your client. So let's kind of just jump in a little bit. So Robin Williams, then that scene that he's saying that it's not your fault, right? That really beautiful scene where he finally is able to break through to goodwill. And so Dr. McGuire, so that's Robin Williams' character. He's like, son, he's like, it is not your fault. And Will says, I know. And then he repeats it. No, you don't. It's not your fault. And Will's like, I know. And then he says again, no, listen to me, son. It is not your fault. He says, I know that. And there's this moment that he just breaks down crying. It's really beautiful. From Harry Potter, I've been going through the series with my kids. We're finally on book 6. But in book 3, in The Prisoner of Azkaban, there's this really great passage in chapter 3, and I'm going to read it here. It says, Professor Dumbledore, though very old, always gave an impression of great energy. He had several feet of long silver hair and beard, half-moon spectacles, and extremely crooked nose. So you see how J.K. Rowling's kind of setting him up. He's an old guy. He's been around the block. He's wise. He's often described as the greatest wizard of the age, but that wasn't why Harry respected him. You couldn't help trusting Albus Dumbledore. And as Harry watched him beaming around the students, he felt really calm for the first time since the Dementor had entered the train compartment. So there's that felt safety that Harry feels around Dumbledore. And sometimes there's actual physical safety. So this is where Gandalf the guide saves the Fellowship from the Balrog in the Mines of Moria. We have another great example here as demonstrating authority, how the guy demonstrates authority. So Morpheus is training Neo, and we see that Morpheus is pretty strong, right? He can beat Neo. But in that scene, we do see a glimpse of brilliance and specialness, with Neo. But this is the whole scene of the whole storytelling point of this scene is really to further establish Morpheus as a trusted guide. He knows his stuff. Same thing with Top Gun Maverick. This was so cool. In the first 5 minutes in the second movie of Top Gun, you're all wondering, what's Maverick been up to? And we see in the first 5 minutes of the movie, the storytellers have said, he's still flying planes, but he's at the top of his game. He's flying planes for Skunk Works, these top secret airplanes, right? He's still got it. And then they reestablish his guidance again because everyone's like, you have to be able to complete the canyon run in this 2 minutes or something, or less than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I can't remember. And they're like, it can't be done. It can't be done. And all the heroes, right? The team of pilots, they kept failing over and over and over and over and over again. They're like, it can't be done. And then the next scene, you see Mavericks on the F-18 flying, and he does it, and he does it better. He actually beats the time, so it can be done. It's such a great scene. Dumbledore, okay? Dumbledore takes the time. So this is how the guide clearly illuminates the problem. Something very complex, right? But he takes time to explain to Harry his relationship to Voldemort and why his scar burns. That's in the Chamber of Secrets. I love that actor. He, R.I.P. He died too soon. That played Dumbledore. Haymitch, right? So Haymitch gives Katniss a simple plan, right? And what's that plan? Here, if you want to win the Hunger Games, you got to get sponsors to send you gifts. You got to get sponsors. So it gives her a simple plan. Same thing, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Simple plan. Go to Dagobah and find Yoda. And then a guide will call the hero to action. Sometimes that's a form of the question. Sometimes that's very direct. So Morpheus is like, it's time to choose. Will you take the red pill or the blue pill? It's time to begin your journey, right? So, and then of course, how can we forget Mother Abbess? Climb every mountain. So she advises Maria to listen to her heart, to follow it, even if it means leaving the life she knows behind as a nun. She calls her to action to climb every mountain, to help her realize her love for Captain Von Trapp and her role as a mother to his children. And so, I watched The Sound of Music, dozens and dozens and dozens of times as a kid. I didn't really like her singing voice, Mother Abbess. So that was always the one I fast forwarded through. But she is the guide. She is the guide in The Sound of Music. All right, here we go. Some action items. Showing empathy. Provide safety. Let's go through a couple of these. All right, show empathy. Showing empathy earns trust, right? You see their pain. This is why Bill Clinton, right? I see your pain. I feel your pain, right? So this is for your intake coordinator on the phone. Are they showing empathy? Do they acknowledge the pain that they're in when that person calls them? Is your website, is it showing empathy, right? Can you demonstrate in a way that says, hey, I see it's hard being a single mom. It can be really stressful. Maybe counseling can help you work through that anxiety and stress. Excuse me. It is difficult to be in a relationship where you seem to talk past each other and communication isn't going well, and you feel like your relationship isn't going to work. That's empathy, right? You're showing them that you understand their pain. So this can also involve your initial intake session, right? So can you show empathy? Can you show empathy in that initial intake session? Can you identify with their pain? Can you let them? Can you help them be seen and heard? Another one is provide safety. So, like, I know that in the therapy office, like, your goal is to be able to establish a sense of safety, so you can go deeper into the therapeutic work that can be done. Are you able to do this quickly in your first session to start building that trust? How are you building that sense of safety? Demonstrate authority. So, saying something like this, like, the counseling road, the journey that you're going on, it can be difficult, but I can show you the way there. The anxiety that's paralyzing you every day, I can help you get through that. So it's not every day. Maybe it's once a week, and then maybe it's once a month. Maybe then it's every 6 months, right? But I can help you get there. So, and I know therapists hate to do this, but it's okay to talk about your experience in your history, in your clinical work, right? It's okay to say something like, I have over 10 years in helping couples work through communication roadblocks. Authority, demonstrating your authority, it's a little bit like seasoning on the food. You don't want too much, but it needs to be there if you want to make an impression. And it's also okay to talk about your PhD or to call yourself a doctor, because people are looking for a guide. They want somebody they can trust. They want somebody with experience. They want somebody with some education to do it, right? To help them. And it's okay to say something like, in my PhD program, the majority of my research was focused on childhood ADHD or something like that, right? Whatever you focused on, that's okay. Let's talk some action items around these other 3 areas. Clearly illuminate the problem. The reason why a lot of this is happening to you is because of this, right? And you clearly illuminate that. Therapists have this amazing superpower to understand complex problems at its core, and how these things are interconnected with the individual and their choices, the family of origin, family systems, all that, right? They have all this insight, but they struggle with being able to clearly communicate that to their client, especially at the very beginning as you're building trust. One way to do this, I think, is helpful, is to figure out these kind of like analogies. So at the beginning, with Elon Musk, how does a lithium ion battery charge in a car? Why does it take so long to get from 80% to 100%? And why doesn't it take so long to get from 0 to 80, right? And it's the whole idea of the parking lot. Well, a lithium ion battery is kind of like a parking lot at the mall. Another way is, like, if you were to explain Disney Plus, it just came online. How would you explain Disney Plus to people? Well, you would say Disney Plus is kind of like Netflix, but with Disney movies. Okay. So I would spend a lot of time figuring out ways to use kind of like analogies to simplify very complex ideas for your clients. Because again, when we're talking about our research, it works. People latch onto that. They perceive you as a trusted guide because you can clearly articulate complex problems in simple ways. All right. The other thing is to give a simple plan. You want to be able to give clients, whether it's your intake, whether it's in your sessions, just kind of simple baby steps, those next steps to do the work. So on your website, you need to have something like, here's how you get started with counseling, and give them a simple 3-step plan to get started, right? For intake coordinators, you want to provide them with a simple plan. Let's say they're ready to go, right? They scheduled, all right, here are the next or three things you need to focus on before your first intake. First thing is you need to fill out the paperwork. The second thing is show up on time or whatever, show up. Third thing is maybe, send me your insurance card information. All right, keep it very simple. Providing a simple plan in that first initial intake session is going to be really important. So you maybe want to say in that intake session, you want to clearly define what maybe 1 to 3 goals are for therapy over the next 8, 12 weeks, giving them very simple plan forward, building that trust, always being clear. All right. So the number 6, call to hero to action. As a therapist, you're going to be saying, or an intake coordinator, whatever, it's time to begin your journey. You want the red pill or the blue pill, right? So you can say something like, let's schedule your next appointment. Or you could ask it in a question like, are you ready to get started with counseling? Would you like to get something on the calendar? You can gently suggest the way they should go, as well. So an idea could be, I think you need to sign up for this group class. It's going to do a lot of help in this area of your life, right? Or maybe you could say, I think getting some testing done would provide a lot of clarity and insight to what you're going through or what your child is going through. It's okay to suggest them in the right direction that's going to help them. You're there to help. They are looking to you to guide them. So do this on your website. Do this on your intake calls. Train your therapists that are on your team to provide a simple plan, to call them to action. The guy will never get the girl to the prom if he doesn't ask her, right? You're never going to take her out to dinner if you don't ask her out. So it's okay to ask and to call them to action. All right. Woo, I'm going to take a break. We're almost done here. We're almost done. I'm going to take a break, and I'd love for you to put in the comments, what type of guide do you gravitate towards, right? Are you kind of more the Dumbledore, Gandalf, Maverick, Morpheus? Obviously, those are my favorite guides, but is there a guide that you tend to like? I'm more like this. I'm a little bit more like this. I like to be like this. And I think if you don't want to answer that, you can answer this question. Of the 6 ways to be a guide, right? We talked about 6 bunch of ways here. Which one do you need to be working on? Do you need to show more empathy? Do you need to find ways to provide more safety or a felt sense of safety? Maybe you need to demonstrate your authority a little bit more, get that confidence and talk about your skill set and your experience. Maybe you need to do a little bit more work on clearly illuminating the problem. Maybe you need to give a simple plan or call them to action. I'm curious what you need to work on and what kind of guide trope do you lean towards? And I'm going to get some water. As they're coming in, this is something my wife is taking to heart as we've been talking about this idea of being the guide. And so she's working with her clinicians and like training them. She's like, I want you to imagine yourself as a guide and they are the hero. And here are ways that you can establish yourself in the guide. And I want you to ask maybe these types of questions in an intake. Here's what the first intake session looks like as you're meeting with the parents. These are important steps in that intake session to help establish you as a guide and build trust. Sometimes it's easier, right? So if you're already a parent, there's some trust already built in if you're working with kiddos, right? If you're working with kiddos, if you're a parent, there's some built-in trust. Like you get it, right? You already had kids. But if you're young and not married or you don't have kids, there's some other ways that you have to be strategic in building that trust because parents are asking, can I trust you with my child? Yeah, sure. Yeah, Charlene. Yeah, making them the hero instead of us. Yeah. What else here? I'm curious if anyone else has any comments. I need to show more. See, Andrea here. I need to show more authority as I am more of a collaborator. Yes, I think that's great. I think collaboration is great. Some people, but they're at the end of the day, they're looking for a guide. So a guide that's like a collaborator because it's sort of like you don't know all the ins and outs, but we can work together to develop a plan, right? So there's that collaborative guide. I think that works pretty well. I mean, if you look at like Lord of the Rings, like Gandalf, the whole fellowship is working together as one unit, and they all have their distinct roles and strengths. But Gandalf was clearly the guide, right? He was the one that they all looked toward. It's a toss-up between Dumbledore and any Mrs. Potts, and calling the hero to them. Yes. Here we go, Selena. Taking on the guide role is helpful, keeping things simple and clear and not confusing their brain. Yeah. We tend to forget how much people don't know. We tend to assume that people understand what counseling is like, and they have no stinking clue at all. And so really dumbing it down to what is counseling, to like, how would you explain it to a second grader or a first grader? Patricia is being more clear. Oh man, that's so huge. That's so huge. So important. Okay. Thank you for all those comments. I appreciate that. Makes me feel not alone on this webinar as I'm talking to myself. All right. So let me get to be the guide in your clients, in the lives of your clients, clinicians in your community. So if you want to be that number one trusted private practice, these are the areas you have to focus on, right? And this is how you grow that brand, that trusted brand. This is how they're going to choose you over the venture capital money backed online providers that are out there. I added this slide last minute, right? So there's really 3 areas of brand building, right? And brand building is really about trust, right? How do you building trust? And I think that comes down to 3 things: clear marketing, empathetic client services, and highly trained team members. So even if you don't have a highly trained clinician, how are you going to get them highly trained? What are those experiences and training you got to do to get them to that point? Because it's all about being the guide. So like the guide kind of encompasses all 3 of these areas. So if you have clear marketing, right, you can clearly break down the problems your business solves. The prospective client's brain will not burn calories. And as we discussed at the top of the webinar, like you'll be perceived as a trustworthy person, as a trustworthy business. Empathetic customer service, right? Empathy builds trust because that person feels seen and heard. And then having highly trained team members, right? Because they do good work. If they do good work, they're going to tell others about your brand. And I'm going to stop going down that rabbit hole. But I think these 3 things, is pretty clear in how to really build that lasting brand recognition in the communities that you serve, is really these things. I mean, if you think about your hairdresser, who you go to, maybe it's a plumber, maybe it's an electrician, home builder, right? How do you actually go about trusting them? It's going to be one of these things in some ways. Okay, one of those. So if you are interested in building a brand and you want to talk about that clear marketing side, on YouTube, I have this was at the Meet You in Kentucky conference. I recorded it as how to build a powerful sales funnel, and walking you through kind of a marketing system. Okay, so I want you to check that out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The other thing I want to mention is TheraSAS. So if you want to be able to capture, qualify, and close leads faster and get away from Google Sheets and other things, I want you to take a look at TheraSAS. We got custom forms you can build and that you can put right on your website, or your team can use internally to capture leads. You can put them in a clearly, a very nice, easy to read visual pipeline. So no one falls through the cracks. You know where each client lead is at and their journey to becoming a client. And then also unified inbox. If you want to centralize all your phone calls, text messages, emails, voicemails in one centralized location and not having multiple locations to track them, TheraSAS has that as well. And this is what I've really found, like the dashboard is super helpful. It's a quick little check-in, a little metric that you can see how the health of your sales and marketing is doing, how many leads are coming into your practice, how many are actually being closed and becoming paying clients. TheraSAS really has these 3 primary benefits: full transparency, real-time analytics, and it helps practice owners sleep a little bit better at night. So because you came to this webinar, you get 40% off. So just use webinar 40, or even better, just go to therasas.com and schedule a demo and see if it's a good fit. All right. So let's ask me some questions. We are at the end of the webinar, and I will put up this little banner here. Just a reminder, just go to therasas.com. You could go check out and buy it, but I highly recommend a demo to see if it's a good fit. But if you want to buy it and you've known enough about it, go for it. Take advantage of that 40% off. All right. So what I'm going to, I actually did this whole thing with the smaller slides. I apologize. There we go. All right. Yeah. Any comments from me? Was this helpful? Not clear? If you have questions on how to apply this to your practice a little bit more in depth, I'm happy to talk about that or share other resources. I'll get some water here. Yes, very clear. Okay, good. I know there's 20 of you on there. Yes, yeah, excellent. Oh, thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. Let's see, what about, where's Meg? Meg in Alaska. Do you think this could help you in Alaska, Meg? Selena, very clear. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. So this was a little bit more theoretical, but I wanted us to kind of I wanted to stimulate your imagination a little bit more, because I really do think, with the venture capital money and these VCs and the expansion of mental health services, especially with multi-state compacts or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. It's going to be really important to build your brand. And it's not hard, but it just takes some intentionality. And I think these 6 ways, you can kind of lean into them a little bit to really make that happen. Very good information. Thank you, Andrea. Absolutely. We are a much smaller. Hey, Meg, there we go. Much real we're connected in a real story-driven way will be important in building trust in small communities. Yeah. And a lot of it's like just showing up. It's just showing up. I know a couple years ago, there was a real tragic death of one of the kids in the school district here. And my wife just said, "Yeah, you know what? I'm happy to come in and talk to the parents about grieving and loss and how to help their children do that." And she did it, showed up. And just kind of just being that trusted guy. Cause how do you help? Parents don't know how to do this, right? It's really hard. Joe, great stuff. What steps to take, become a trusted, when you're trusting when you are new, just starting to practice. Great question. You got to just have a simple homepage. I got resources on that. If you go to my YouTube channel, I'll try to find it as I'm talking here with you. So it's really about, actually, I think my last webinar was on that. I got to find it. So having a very simple homepage, directly talking to your ideal client, right on the header, right? I help men do this. I help women, or I help couples, something right there on the homepage, that they know exactly what you do and how you can help them. And then honestly, I would start reaching out to other clinicians, referral sources, depending on who your ideal client is, just like finding out who those people are. Let me find this here. How to build a high engaging, look at that. How to build a high engaging homepage. I'm going to put this in the chat here. Okay. I'll put that in the chat, and then maybe I can show you this if this allows me to bring this on. Okay, right there. So how to build a high engaging homepage right there. And networking like crazy. I think that's going to be really important with referral sources. Very helpful. Most of the clients I speak with within refer. Okay, hold on, Meg. Yeah. Most of the clients I speak with in free consults refer to something they read on my website. They connect with something that's real and relatable. Yes, Megan, this is really important. Like, I would say it's okay to have a couple blog posts up there. Talk about the like 3 simple ways to communicate better as a couple. People will read this stuff, right? And so if you're able to communicate clearly problems, people like how to solve particular problems that people might be having, you're going to be a trusted authority, right? You will be trusted. I mean, to kind of go a little meta here, like this is what I'm doing, right? So I'm building trust with you, trying to distill complex information in a simple way to help grow your practices, because you never know when you might need Therasas or coaching call or something, that's just how it is. I'm trying to build my own brand by being a trusted resource for practice owners to help scale up their practice. Okay. Speaking of one thing, I completely forgot to mention, if you're a group practice owner, Practice Scaling Summit. So this is something Nate and I put on last year, and it's a place where group practice owners get together. We're going to talk about marketing, operations, finances. No fluff. We're not doing mindset, how to have the right mindset. This is like tactical stuff that you can take to scale your practice. So this is live now, so you can go check that out at group practice or at the practicescalingsummit.com, and I'll put that in the link as well. All right. Thank you all for joining me. You all will get an email of the replay, and this will be also going up on YouTube. So thank you so much for your time. Really grateful for the feedback, and I will see you, I believe, next month. I have a handful of webinars coming out, and guests joining me as well. So, all right. Thank you all, and we'll see you in the next webinar. Bye. Oh, James, sorry. Just go to brandyourpractice.com if you want to schedule, and you can see the services there. Yeah, you're welcome, Joe. Boy, I signed off and then I saw it. So let me put this in the chat. Coaching with Brent. There you go. You saw it. There you go. All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll see you in the next webinar. All right. Bye.